How's it rockin', Dween Nation? This is the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, or share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy.
Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. They are now the second team we've discussed in the AFC South. Obviously, last year was an underwhelming season. They hoped for growth with Anthony Richardson. They did not find it. Jonathan Taylor was very solid. Their wide receiver room was under average, I'd say, overall, collectively, even though Alec Pierce kind of shined last year while Michael Pittman took a dip in his production, and Josh Downs was hurt throughout the season. But now it's Shane Steichen. We're looking at Shane Steichen. We're looking for answers. They bring in Daniel Jones. And to me, this is a make it or break it year for them. I kind of mentioned it when we talked about the Texans. This is either we're a playoff team and Anthony Richardson might just be our guy, or maybe Daniel Jones breaks out and he might be the guy. He was just in the wrong system in New York. Or they're going to fire their coach. They're going to get rid of Anthony Richardson and be looking at a rebuild and getting a new quarterback and coach. That's kind of my thoughts. What are your thoughts with how the Colts seasons, their possible outcomes?
Well, Justin, like I said, what I mentioned in last episode, I'm slightly concerned on the confidence in Anthony Richardson. I still believe in this guy. He still reminds me so much of Cam Newton. I mean, I literally every time I see him play, Justin, I literally think of the days of Cam Newton, his first couple years in Carolina. I remember one season they had Justin in Carolina. They were like 8-7 or like something like 9-8, like something very subpar. They were still able to make the playoffs. I think they won a playoff game or something like that. But you know what, Justin? I think that with Indianapolis, it has to start with the confidence in your quarterback. And last year, they displayed a lot of just back and forth, like, oh, we're going to start with AR. Oh, but let's go with Joe Flacco. Okay, let's forget Joe Flacco. Let's go back with AR. And then it was kind of a back and forth thing where you kind of lost track, Justin. I remember setting some lineups in fantasy and daily fantasy. And I'm like, oh, should I start Alec Pierce or Pittman or yada, yada? But I'm like, oh, wait, who's that quarterback today, right? And it was kind of one of those things where AR wasn't necessarily hurt. You know, they kind of were just trying to protect their butts there, the coaching staff. So that's one thing, Justin. Second thing is Jonathan Taylor. He ended 2024 with an absolute sensational last couple games. Oh, yeah. Most definitely won some fantasy championships. So how can they build on that, Justin? How can they start from game one to the end of the season? Because I believe Jonathan Taylor, and you as well, Justin, you had him in one of your main leagues, and so did I in the elite league. I think that he is one of the best running backs in the league that nobody talks about. Like, yes, there's the McCaffreys, there's the Saquons, there's the Derrick Henrys. And it's like Jonathan Taylor is in that elite category as far as fantasy running backs as well, Justin. And I could be mistaken. He was near 200 yards or at 200 yards in one of his last games of the season. And I think that that's something they need to build on off the bat. Yeah. Secondly, Justin, they need a Luke Kuechly. They need a linebacker that is the quarterback of the defense. They so desperately need a leader on that defense, Justin. I can't remember the last time the Colts had a really, I think it was Shaq, or was it Shaq or Darius Leonard? I think it changed his name.
He changed his name, yeah.
He changed his name. He was one of their star players. But before then, Justin, I'm trying to think, was it Dwight Freeney as their best defensive player since then? Maybe Robert Mathis. I don't know if you remember Robert Mathis.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most underrated pass rushers in NFL history. They need something like that, Justin. They need a star D lineman. They need a star linebacker. And they struggle to find their defensive player for the longest. And I think that's what they need this defensive draft. They need to, off the bat, get a linebacker. I think that's if it's a Jihad from Alabama, I think he's good. They need a star defensive player, Justin, in order for them to take the next level.
I think that's an interesting take you have because – yeah, they definitely need linebacker. They lost EJ Speed in free agency, so they lost one of their main starters. And unfortunately, they actually lost a good chunk of their offensive line. 3 starters are out of Indianapolis. Will Fries went to the Vikings, so did Ryan Kelly. Mark Lewinsky is still free agent. But that's of some concern. Maybe they need to go to offensive line. And I know a lot of talks because as much as, Pittman had a really good year the year prior, and Pierce had a somewhat impressive season this past year, and Downs has been really consistent. They're still missing that guy on the offense. So I could see wide receiver being a possibility. I could see tight end being a huge possibility. They lost 2 starters in the tight end room with Mo Alley Cox and Kylan Granson, who are not great tight ends to even begin with. So I think that maybe a Tyler Warren could step into this offense, or a Colston Loveland, and be a piece where Anthony Richardson could really rely on them in order to build up his growth. And Tyler Warren is a really good blocker as well to help this offensive line that lost 3 starters. But you're still right. Jonathan Taylor is the livelihood of this offense, so they need to continue to pepper him with, carries and touches. They brought in Khalil Herbert to back him up, which is, that does nothing for me.
Yeah.
But the Colts, man, they have to put more into this. They have to put all they have into this season. And they made 2 really good moves with Cam Bynum and Travarius Ward in the secondary. So I see an improved secondary. But you're right. Their linebacker room is struggling. I think their defensive line is really under average. I know DeForest Buckner has been great for a long time, but he's 31 now. So he's getting a little older. So there are some holes that this team really needs to fill still through the draft. Tight end, wide receiver, D-line, linebacker, in order to really set them up. And then obviously, really what it's going to come down to is if Anthony Richardson takes the next step, this team will take the next step. But if he continues to struggle, this team, I just can't see it. Even with Daniel Jones, maybe we get one of those, like every year now we've had a quarterback really revitalize their career. Sam Darnold, Josh Dobbs, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield. Is Daniel Jones's possible season to do it? That would be a cool story. But that remains to be seen. I think Anthony Richardson will be the day one starter. And for Colts fans, the sad truth is, if you see Daniel Jones become the starter, that means that project of Anthony Richardson failed. And that means maybe GM's on the line, maybe coaches on the line. So you're really banking a lot on this Florida product, this former Gator, to really blossom. And I really think that's probably what all this season's gonna lay down to. But let's focus now to the fantasy football aspects with all the players, and I'll let you just kind of run through each of them. With AR starting day one, are you a guy that kind of wants to buy in, maybe draft him as a quarterback 1 or quarterback 2?
You know what, Justin? I don't think I'm going to draft Anthony Richardson this year. And you know what, Justin? He could go undrafted, in my opinion. I think that, Justin, you got to remember that he doesn't really throw that much, Justin. There's some games where he's ended, I'm looking at, he's like 150, 140. I mean, he doesn't even hit the 200-yard passing mark. And it's like, not only that, Alec Pierce, their wide receivers, they had really good seasons, like with really good games with Joe Flacco at quarterback. And it's like, that to me, it's very concerning. It's like, I don't know how that goes. So I don't think I'm going to draft AR personally. In fact, Justin, in one of our main leagues last year with the one we drafted in person, I ended up drafting Jordan Love, but I was thinking of going with AR. And it's just like, now Jordan Love looks tremendously better. Obviously, he struggled a little bit this past season too. But you trust Jordan Love more than you'd ever trust AR. So for me, I don't think I'm going to be drafting AR. The only thing he really offers at this point in time is his rushing ability. He's a great rusher, in the red zone, and he's a great rushing, quarterback. But the arm is concerning me. The way they're using him, I think they might have to change coordinators as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's tough with AR because he's probably going near the back half of drafts. He's probably in the double digits at quarterback, which with that rushing upside that you mentioned is the only reason that I kind of buy in, because if you're able to get a quarterback in the 14th round or maybe in the waiver wire, and he has the potential, it might be at a 20% chance, but he has the potential to be a top 6, top 7 quarterback if he really gets his accuracy down, because he's got the rushing capabilities. I mean, he's currently going at quarterback 21 in drafts right now. So nobody's believing in him. If you take the chance on him, you didn't spend a lot of capital on him. You could just cut your losses with him if he fails. But if he hits, it's a steal. So there's that is definitely a dilemma a lot of fantasy managers have. I might take the chance on him if I kind of just want to throw get a sleeper late in a draft. But for AR, I agree. He's not somebody you want to rely on. If you're near the ends of your draft and you're like, oh, I might have to pick Anthony Richardson as a quarterback one, or maybe Dak Prescott or Tua or Matthew Stafford. Like if that's the case, go with the more proven, the safer product. If he's a guy you're gonna have to rely on. That's kind of my thoughts with AR. As for Jonathan Taylor, expect good things. Top 2 round pick, right? I would probably say for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, maybe first then. Late first would be a good play. Because
Mm-hmm.
he really stepped up at the end of the year. Unfortunately, you were talking about fantasy playoffs. I lost my first round game with Taylor when he fumbled at the goal line just to be eliminated, and then the next week go for 44, over 200 yards rushing, and then the next 2 games actually score 27 plus points. So it was like a stab in the chest. You're just like, oh wow, what could have been, when it just doesn't matter anymore. But for
Justin,
Taylor,
I'm sorry. I'm feeling your pain here because in our elite league that happened to me. I had missed the playoffs by a week, and if I would have made the playoffs, I could have won it all the way because I also had Brian Thomas and Jared Goff was on fire. And man, anyways, go ahead, Justin.
No, yeah, I mean, we might have to have our own like episode, just a sob story of
Therapy.
failed playoffs, because that honestly, I mean, I might continue this rant. The year before that, I had Brees Hall go for like 2 points and Bijan go for negative 0.4 just to the weeks after they were the top 3 running backs. But anyway, let's just move on before I start crying on camera. Last thing, let's talk about the wide receivers. Is there any interest? Because obviously we talked about AR not throwing for a lot of yards. Is there interest or sleeper potential with any of them? And what about a possible Tyler Warren? Is he a sleeper as well if he goes to the Colts?
Well, yeah, actually, I do like Tyler Warren as a great tight end on the Colts. They need some talent on the tight end position as well. Um, you know, I still don't want to give up on Pittman, and I still don't want to give up on Alec Pierce. I remember when Alec Pierce was drafted, I drafted him in one of our main leagues. I was very excited, but he hasn't really done much until Joe Flacco got there, right? So I want to believe that this is Alec Pierce's big breakout year. Like, we're always going to call it the Chris Godwin, breakout year where no one was like, Chris Godwin, why'd you pick him, Justin? And then all of a sudden, he has a great year. And look at Chris Godwin now, Justin. He's behind Mike Evans as the greatest Tampa Bay Buccaneer potentially of all time. Maybe, not a Buccaneer, but, wide receiver as far, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that Pierce can have a Godwin-like breakout year, but Justin, it's all on AR, and it's also on this offensive coaching staff, Justin. That this offensive coordinator, they gotta put some plays together, and potentially, I believe that it's Pierce's breakout year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Steichen, he's only a few years removed from being the play caller for the Eagles when we had Jalen Hurts' breakout season. Like, we're not that far removed from it when they made a Super Bowl and they lost, but it was Jalen Hurts crazy, A.J. Brown going nuts. But we haven't really seen that spark with the Colts. We're expecting something, but I completely agree. And crazy enough, A.D. Mitchell is buried on this depth chart too. Is there a possibility he could step up? Because he was a second-round pick for the Colts last year, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas.
That's right.
Because he has promise. So there's a lot of guys that are either they proved themselves, but then they regressed, or they just haven't proven themselves yet. So this is a big year for the Colts, even though I feel like they are super under the radar. Nobody's talking about them, but I think that they're a team worth noting, and I think that the range of outcomes for this team are vast. It's going to be great or it's going to be awful, unfortunately. So you're going to take the risk as a Colts fan. You're going to go to the games anyway, but hopefully you are on the winning side of things. Would you say, though, before we jump to the next team, are the Colts kind of firmly in second place for the AFC South?
Yeah, I'd go with that. I'd go with second place for sure.
Right, because Jacksonville, new coach, Tennessee, new quarterback. But yeah, you know what? We'll stop this here, and then we're going to jump to the next team.